a nightmare is somewhere it stopped.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly like looking at it to make sure it's still going.
Because could you imagine, like, you
No.
do all that work and it's gone?
The worst part would be calling them and going,
We have to do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which in this case I interviewed the assistant football coach for UK. He's a big deal around here. Everybody loves him, and but he's so busy.
Right.
He wouldn't have rescheduled.
Right.
I would have lost it.
Your one shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, Keith and Joseph Yarber.
Hey, good morning.
I'm super excited for this conversation for a few different levels, a few different reasons. For everybody listening, we're here in Lexington, Kentucky. I've been out here since Monday. We've had an awesome trip working together. I've worked with you guys for just about a year now. We'll call it a year for sake of conversation.
Yep.
But I have thoroughly enjoyed getting to know both of you guys. And so I'm super excited to learn from you and pick your brain and hear some more of your story and things like that. For everybody listening, Keith founded Tops Magazine, Tops Lexington, in 2004, 2005.
About 2005, yeah.
Which it's been cool to see. I'm so excited to talk to you guys about, obviously your entrepreneur journey, but I also love the father-son dynamic of it. And a quick anecdote, but yesterday Joseph did his first ever public speaking gig, which you crushed it, by the way.
Thank you.
And it was so fun for me to see because, Keith, you were introducing Joseph and got a little bit choked up and saw.
Yeah.
And it was just, I love talking to entrepreneurs. I love talking to people that have built something. I also, though, really love talking to good people. And I think that it's been so fun for me to see your guys' relationship, your guys' dynamic as, the father and the son side of it, but also navigating a business and, the digital agency and the print magazine and all of that stuff. So I just wanted to share before I dive in how cool I think it is that you guys work together, because a father-son relationship is hard anyway. Business relationships are hard anyway. I can't imagine, some of the complexities with a father-son business relationship.
Yeah.
But Keith, I'd love to hear, I know that you were in radio beforehand and kind of took the leap and founded Tops in, like I'd mentioned, 04, 05, whenever it was. Will you tell me that story? I want to hear why you initially made the shift and what was the vision and the thought process? Because I'd imagine you took quite a bit of a risk to get Tops off the ground.
It was an enormous risk. I started in the radio business back when I was in college, and I'll tell you the quick origin of how I got into media. When I was in college in the 70s, everybody had to get part-time jobs to help pay their way through school. And back in the 70s, I know this is going to be very hard for you to envision, but I had huge hair, like Peter Frampton, big hair, and I had this big, awesome, ugly beard. And because that was the style back then.
We got to get a photo of that.
Well, I've got a photo. It's not pretty. And so I was going around trying to get a part-time job. Well, I walked in the door, and back then, you kind of wore army jackets. It was just kind of the thing. And I looked like one of those damn hippies, back in the day. And I couldn't get a job anywhere. And so what happened was they had an opening at the radio station there in Mount Sterling, Kentucky. And my mom worked at a small drugstore downtown Mount Sterling. And the guys from the radio station would come in there all the time, and she learned that they had an opening. So she told me about it, and I had done some public speaking in high school. Terrible, I'm sure. But long story short, I applied for that job and somehow got it. And but they just needed a warm body at that radio station. And if you ever worked at a small town radio station, what they do on Sundays is called God Squad. And churches come in every 30 minutes and they do their program. So I was the guy there that ran the whole Sunday shift. Every 30 minutes a new church would come in and I would introduce them, turn the microphone on, and basically sit there for 28 minutes. And that's how I got my start in radio, was running religious programming on Sundays at a small AM radio station. Well, I got bitten by the radio bug. I loved it. Worked at the small town radio station. In college, I worked at the campus radio station, a 50,000 watt FM radio station. And during 2 summers in college, my best friend had relatives in Reno, Nevada. And we went out there and I worked at a couple of stations in Reno and just loved the radio business. So when I graduated college, every announcer thinks that they can run the radio station better than anybody else can run it.
Of course.
And you don't really know that much about it. I remember doing my shift at the radio station in Mount Sterling, and I would have a stack of commercials to play during that hour. I just wouldn't play them because it was interrupting my show.
Of course.
Which was so good. And I didn't play the commercials. I had no idea that was the things paying the bills around there.
Kind of important.
Kind of important. So after I got out of college, I weaseled my way into a job as an entry-level sales guy at a rock radio station. And because I learned to run a radio station, you had to come up through sales. And I was an entry-level sales guy, number 7 on the totem pole, started there in May, and I worked my tail off. I came in early, stayed late, did everything they told me to do. So I started in May, and by the following March or April, I was the number 1 sales guy on the team.
Awesome.
So I got promoted up through the ranks pretty fast, and by the age of 25, they made me the general manager of the radio station.
Wow, at 25.
Way too young. Way too young, looking back now. But fell in love with the radio business, and I worked in radio most of my career. So I worked for a small corporate company that I would probably still be working for today had he not sold. But he sold to a very large corporate radio company, which is now iHeart. It was J-Core at the time, became Clear Channel, became iHeart. So after about 8 years in this giant corporate radio company, I got a little disillusioned with a big corporate thing, but at the same time, I started having this idea for TOPS. The local websites with media companies back in 2005 were terrible. They were corporate. They weren't local at all, and they weren't easy to navigate. And if you'll remember, back in 2005, Facebook wasn't even Facebook.
Yeah.
MySpace was the big thing.
Right.
And so we launched this. I had this entrepreneurial spirit. I'm like, if we can come up with a local website that showcases the best of our community, we'll send photographers to events, we'll write about things, we will set the standard for local community fun websites. So we launched topsandlikes.com in 2005.
So the first version was digital in 05?
Yeah.
You went website, then print?
Yes.
In 05.
We did it totally backwards from the way anybody else did
Yeah.
it, because my entire vision was to launch this website and make it so good that we could license other markets and build a network of TOPS websites in each city. So we launched it. I spent $100,000 of my money, over $100,000, to launch this local website.
Yeah.
We got Rick Dees to do our commercials. We had billboards all over town. People can still remember the jingle we launched with.
It was funny. Yesterday at our event, you were mentioning that in just like conversationally with somebody, and one of your advertisers or clients, I don't remember the exact dynamic, but she finished singing
the jingle.
You know, she finished it with you, which tells me, you know, that clearly stuck. That's wild. I've got to imagine in 2005. First of all, I think how crazy it is to start with digital and then go to the print that early. Today, that wouldn't be that crazy. You know, obviously
right.
In 2024, for somebody to do it in that order. But in 05, you were a very early adopter in terms of the digital the concept of creating an audience and then monetizing it digitally in 05 was very new, I think. So did you quit your job? I mean, you had to walk away from the radio, or were they happening simultaneously? What was...
No, I walked away from a very high-paying job. They were paying me a lot of money. I ran a cluster of about 12 or 13 radio stations between Lexington, Kentucky, Frankfort, and Somerset. And I was making great salary, great benefits, and the whole thing. but I could kind of feel that down the road corporate cuts were going to be coming, and they usually get the highest paid people first.
Yeah.
And I just had a feeling that was going to happen. So I went from living very comfortably to when I started Top's website, I was the lowest paid employee for the first 4 or 5 years of the company.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the first 4 years, I didn't get paid at all.
Yeah.
I drew no salary, living off savings and borrowed money at the time. And it was tough. It's tough launching a company.
Yeah.
But somehow we made it through, and here we are today.
Wild. 19 years later.
Yes.
And when did we introduce print?
We introduced print in 2007 because my vision of replicating these websites to other cities took a big hit because the web guy that I partnered with, turns out he had some issues and he wasn't as financially stable as we thought. And so he was not holding up his end of the bargain. Plus, we were such an early adopter. I had relationships with all 4 bank presidents here in Lexington. They were all great guys. And I met with them and said, you need to be on this website. And again, this was 2005, 2006. And they all said the same thing. Quote, Keith, we're sure one day the internet will be a big thing, but we're not ready for it yet.
Today's not that day.
We can't even answer our emails. We're still learning how to answer emails. So we got a lot of clients on early, but we hit a wall. And we were trying to put video on our website. We were way ahead of our time. People were using AOL dial-up at the time. Things wouldn't load. I didn't quite understand all the dynamics of giant JPEG pictures loading your website down. So anyway, we hit a wall in terms of our advertising dollars on the website. We were doing okay, but we hit a wall. So the next phase of the plan was to introduce the magazine. So in January 2007, we introduced Topps magazine, and it just caught fire. I mean, people loved that magazine. And so we spent a lot more of our efforts developing the magazine because that's what people were gravitating to at that time.
Right.
So the website and the licensing cities took a big back seat as we were developing the magazine.
Yeah, love it. Joseph, because I'm trying to think back, not to like age you or anything, but you were a kid at this, in 05, you're middle school, high school, however old you were, seeing your dad, quit this amazing job and, living comfortably and things like that. I'm curious, did you feel the stress in the early days? Was it apparent, or for you, was it business as usual and, you were sort of protected from the startup stresses?
It did a great job of, shielding me and my sister from that. I will say the only thing I really noticed was I think we canceled the Dish Network. That was tough.
You felt that one, yeah.
We had to watch public access television for a while, which kind of
life
sucked.
is hard.
Yeah.
That was sacrifices.
Right.
Primitive.
That was brutal. But no, really. We didn't feel it. We had to come in and clean the bathrooms and stuff, and we didn't have a cleaning company.
It's so funny because I've had many a days where me and my family are at my office, on a Saturday cleaning it, and my boys are walking around with Clorox wipes, wiping down the conference table and
taking out the trash.
Yeah.
And the family got involved early on, cleaning the office and doing all the menial tasks that you have to do as a small business owner.
That's it. You wear all the hats. I'm, the janitor, the accountant, the salesman, the trainer. You guys get it. Did you? Because I know, Joseph, that you went to University of Kentucky. Remind me of your degree?
Just marketing.
Marketing. Okay. So you always knew you would kind of want to go into the marketing world, and you had a stint in what I'm going to call corporate America as well before you joined the family company. Walk me through that, and what I'm especially curious about is, did you always think that you wanted to work with your dad and work at Topps and later Limestone, which we'll dive into, or how did that kind of evolution happen?
So I guess to answer your first question, Dad made me get a job doing door-to-door sales in high school. and that was brutal. It was awful.
You were selling for tops?
No.
Oh,
this
something.
was like lawn care basically.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was brutal. It was tough. I mean, nobody wants to answer the door anymore. Like, especially not 10 years ago, and definitely not today.
Right.
And I thought, well, this can't be sales. Like this, this isn't sales. This is like harassing people. And so then I got introduced into what I would guess call software sales or like sales development. I was like, well, I'll join a software company. Supposedly there's really good money in this, like all that stuff. And so I joined a software company, and this was right before or right on the onset of COVID, basically. And I was supposed to move to Michigan. And instead of doing that, I got to work remotely here in Lexington. But what it turned out to be, you know what sales development is. It's cold calling people, that sort of thing. But it was calling the same list of leads over and over and over and over and over again. I mean, you would look at some of like the dial histories on some of these leads, and it would have 15, 20 calls in one day. I mean, it was, and they'd finally answer the phone, and you'd just get ripped apart, and of course they didn't want to buy software after that. I mean, after you just harassed them during the entirety of their day. So I lasted there for about 9 or so months, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like this can't be sales. I mean, we're just harassing people. And so then, but I've always like, watching Dad do tops and like the website and all that stuff. And I think I was in high school. It's like, you guys need to hire somebody in-house for digital marketing. Like, this is going to be big. Like, this is like what you guys need to be looking at. And, I think, I don't think I caused him to look at it, but I do think at some point it was like, okay, yeah, we are missing the boat. And then, he launched the digital agency or Tops Digital Solutions a little later than that. So at the end of my stint in software sales, I was like, well, I'll just go work for Dad. Like, I just got to get out of here. Like, this isn't going anywhere. I'm not enjoying this. This isn't fun. I'm not learning anything. I'll go learn with the team he had in place. Let me work for free. Like, I'll just work for free for now. Just let me learn. And unfortunately, I didn't have to work for free, but he did let me on, and I got to learn, and that was kind of the start of that.
And what year was that?
2019.
Okay, cool.
I guess 2020.
So 4 or 5 years ago. And that was like that was kind of also when they introduced digital, or we already had the digital side of it?
I would say, 3-4 years maybe under the belt?
Yeah, at least 2 or 3 years.
So what's it been, like, walk me through, what's it like working, for your dad? Like, from a relationship perspective, or I don't know, just did you always want to do that, or did it kind of happen naturally? Or like, was it always in the cards when you think back to when you were in high school that someday you wanted to be working with your dad, or was it never a plan and it sort of just happened?
No, I think it just happened naturally. And I think in high school I wanted to be like a geologist or something.
Right.
Yeah. It was I think it just happened naturally. I mean, I'd never really expected to be working here or for him or anything like that. It just kind of naturally occurred.
Yeah.
One of the things that they say is, because when the kids were in high school, a lot of people would ask me, are your kids going to come to work for you? So I did a lot of research about the dynamics of that. And the prevailing wisdom was, don't force your kids to come to work for you.
Yeah.
Because if you do, they might resent it and say, well, you made me come to work for you, and I missed all these other opportunities. And what they said let happen is, unless your kids specifically come to you and say, I want to work for the company, let them go out and discover for themselves what else is out there. And if they thrive and develop and do all that with other companies, then that's great. Let them come to you so that you're not forcing them into something that they may not really want to do.
Right.
And that's kind of what happened here. It was more of a natural, organic thing than me forcing him to come to work for us.
Did you want it to happen, though? Like, we're when you look back and you're thinking, building your company and raising your family and all that, was working together in the back of your mind ever, or were you pretty neutral on the idea too?
I was a little bit neutral because you want them to pursue whatever path they want to pursue.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to influence that in any way. And I always thought if either one of them wanted to come to work in the family business, that would be great. But I was trying to keep a little bit neutral. And if it happened, that would be a great thing. But I didn't want to force the issue.
Right. Yeah. I'm just thinking about, my kids are young, but I'll be honest, I love the idea of,
Yeah.
somebody working, having like the family business, like the kids working in it and all that. And I'm
Yeah.
obviously 20 years ahead, 30 years probably ahead of myself on that. But I just think it's cool. And I think it's also what great wisdom and insight to, have Joseph explore, figure out what you want to do and go to school and chase dreams and have all those paths, and how cool that they kind of, collided. What's the most challenging thing about working together? What's the hardest part about it? Like, are you guys able to, what does Thanksgiving dinner look like? Are we talking about business, or are we able to shut it off?
Yeah. Always talking about business.
Always. Yeah.
Which probably isn't always good, but yeah, it just always naturally comes up. It's kind of hard to avoid.
Right. Have you guys always been close? Have you guys always had a close relationship?
I'd like to think so, yeah.
Yeah. Normally close,
Yeah.
nothing. Yeah. Has working together strengthened or made that more challenging, just like the father-son relationship?
I feel like strengthened it.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be my answer, yeah.
Oh, I definitely
Are you
think
saying that because he's here?
No. No, we've definitely had to overcome some challenges together.
Yeah.
That's for sure. No, definitely strengthened.
I was a buddy of mine that I run ultras with sent me a Instagram reel the other day, and I forget the exact words in it, but the gist of it was basically that, like, relationships are forged through adversity and like hard times, and like when you experience things together, you get closer. And I think there's so many parallels with business ownership and running ultras, but one of them is that you experience a whole lot in a very short amount of time.
Well, I think he has a whole new appreciation
Right.
for, I've always thought that when they were in school or doing whatever, and I would go to work, they have no idea
No
what I
idea.
did. And they have no idea about the challenges and the worries and the frustrations and all those things that you have to overcome day to day. The competition that's out there, employees, the whole things that you deal with, expenses. So I think he has a whole new appreciation for, the business
Right.
that we have. And I definitely think it's definitely helped the relationship. I think the one thing you have to be cognizant of is to not treat Joseph or your child or kid that works for you with favoritism.
Yeah.
So the other employees feel like, well, he's going to get by with murder and, we can't.
Right.
So always try to make it that he's treated equally as well as the other employees, because the moment they sense that, he's getting a lot of favoritism over me, then that's not a good thing.
Not going to work. Yeah. Do you feel pressure from that sense of, like, I don't know, that you have to prove yourself or over deliver or make sure that they know that there's no favoritism? Like, do you feel any of that, or for you is it just I don't know, business as usual?
I feel like a little bit, but mainly business as usual. I mean, I definitely, I don't want them to think like I'm just slacking off, like I don't know what I'm talking about.
Right.
I try to be an expert in like everything I could possibly know, so I'm not just the digital guy who knows some things. I try to be as knowledgeable as I possibly can on everything we could possibly do for a client, if that makes sense.
No, totally. Like, you genuinely deserve to be here. So then there's no...
I'd like to think so.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I think that adds some validity to what you were talking about, that idea of letting our kids explore paths and find passions and whatever. And if they end up at the family company, then that's fine. Because I think by nature of that, the paths have gotten there organically. You've got your degree in marketing, you've got your background in software sales. I mean, you would probably be a good fit regardless of the last name. You know what I mean? Which that makes it there. That adds to that idea that that's the right way to do it, instead of just bringing the kids on, and that's more of like the handout idea rather than genuinely earning it and working your way into the company, which is cool. I'm curious because I've been a business owner now for I'm in my third year. I'm closing in on 3 years of business. And, the highs are high, the lows are low. I've told my dad is he's my advisory board, and whenever I tell him that, he says, well, remember that you get what you pay for, you know, and so I get my free advisory board. But you know, him and I commiserate quite a bit on, you know, he's my sounding board when even if I'm just stressed about the business or whatever, you know, he's who I call to, or, you know, because I don't have, one of the challenges of business ownership is that we don't have an advisory board. I don't have, you know, a boss that I can walk into his office and get advice from or whatever. And so my dad has sort of turned into that for me. And it's been awesome because, you know, he's got a little bit more of the corporate perspective. He's worked in the corporate world forever, and now he's a GM of a smaller company. So we relate on a little bit more of the same level of, you know, how are we going to make payroll next week, and, you know, those things. But I've told him in the past that, you know, there's been times when I've been in a ton of stress and I've looked back and been like, man, would I do this again? I don't know. You know, it's been so hard. Of course I would do it again, and I'm, you know, where I want to be and all that. I only have 3 years of perspective on that. You have 19 years. When you look back 19 years ago and you see now that, you know, we've got the digital division with Limestone Digital, we've got Tops in Lexington, the website, we've got Tops, the magazine. I think you've got, I don't know how many employees, but, you know, a half dozen employees in this amazing office, in this conference room. And yesterday we had this awesome catered luncheon where we did the lunch and learn and the public speak. You know, it's a thing now is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Where we are today, has it exceeded your expectations from 19 years ago? Met them, or under, you know, or did you ever think you'd be where you are now? How does the reality match kind of like where you thought things would evolve and grow into?
That is a great question, and the answer is some of each of what you described.
Sure.
You know, they say in the military, when you go into war, the battle plans never turn out the way that you think, because somebody's going to do this, and you're always adapting on the fly.
Right.
And I think this whole business is, you know, if I could go back in time and know what I know now, oh my goodness, I'd be so much farther ahead of the game. But you learn as you go along with the business, the successes, the mistakes, the personnel issues, and that type of thing. So I think it's some of the above. I mean, if I could rewind the clock a little bit, we would definitely have gotten into the digital marketing side much, much earlier than we did. I did not know as much about digital marketing as I should. It was kind of the magazine, if I go back to 2015, 16, 17, the magazine was just crushing it back then. I mean, we were killing it. And we started to dabble in digital marketing, and the truth was I didn't understand as much about it as I do today. And had I been a better student of digital marketing, I think that we would have launched a bigger agency. I think if I could do it all over again, we took our magazine into Louisville, Kentucky, because we felt there were some synergies between Lexington and Louisville. So we launched our magazine in Louisville in 2017. And the magazine was a huge success in Louisville. From a readership standpoint, a partnership, we partnered with all the big major nonprofits, even the Kentucky Derby. I mean, it was great. The problem in Louisville, Kentucky was we couldn't find salespeople. We could not find salespeople. We were there 6 or 7 years, and I rarely had a full sales team. And I talked to my other media buddies in Louisville. They couldn't find media salespeople. We even hired a headhunting firm, and they said their number one request in Louisville was salespeople, and they couldn't find salespeople.
So if any great salesmen are listening, move to Louisville.
Move to Louisville. There's tons of jobs for you. So we eventually shut down the Louisville magazine, mainly because we couldn't find a sales team. If I had it to do all over again, I would not have gone into Louisville with the magazine. I would have launched our digital agency in a much bigger way. Because 2017 was the tipping point when digital marketing became a huge thing.
Right.
So that is my one, if I could rewind the clock, we would have done that.
Yeah. It makes me wonder, 15 years from now for me, like what I'll look back on, and because gosh, the learning curve is so steep. I mean, I've already learned so many lessons. I mean, we've had we meet every other week, and we've talked about, the collection issues, or I've trusted people too much, or I've overextended myself on these things, or whatever it might be. And in that, I just think that, it's been a millisecond, really, 19 years, how much things can evolve and change and things like that. It's funny you talk about 2017. I was thinking back, I was telling Joseph this morning, those were like the heydays of my phone book ad sale careers. And that's right when, started really picking up the digital sales and, shifting it that way. It's always fun when I get to talk to people that have been in the media space from, the early 2000s till now, because you talk about an industry that's been revolutionized. I've got the background in the newspaper and the phone book world, and evolving into the digital agency. And anybody who can survive those times in media, is resilient enough for, I think, whatever's ahead. And it's also cool too, because we've got Tops, and then we've got Limestone Digital, which is the digital agency, the digital division of Tops. And I'm just going to call you the head of it. You're the director of operations, and you're running that side of it. But I'm kind of sensing this dynamic where, Keith, you're running the magazine, and, Tops in Lexington, and I know you're over it all, and Joseph is really owning and taking control and running the agency side of it. Have you had time to sit and think about what the future might look like from that? I mean, I know 19 years feels like forever from now, but it's interesting to think about, Keith looking back 19 years from Tops, and I just wonder if you've looked ahead, or like have a dream or a vision for where the digital side of things could go and evolve to, or where that side of it's headed, or if you've even had time to look ahead.
Let's see. I have kind of a dream of what it would look like, but in reality, I think I need to break down that dream into small actionable steps.
Right.
I guess that's kind of the advice on what to do. I guess I needed to set a goal, and then break it down into manageable chunks, and then break those chunks down even further and further, and to actual action items I could do. All this to say, no, not really. I've not really thought about the next 5 years, 10 years, no, not really.
Yeah.
And I guess I probably should. I mean, that's probably a good thing to do,
Well,
right?
who knows? Like, were you thinking about the future when you were building Tops, or was it one day at a time?
Initially, when you start a company, you have these kind of grand visions of where it could go, and then reality hits.
Right.
And then I remember you reminded me in the early days of Tops, payroll was on Friday. Payroll was due Friday, and on Tuesday, I'm thinking, do we have enough money in the bank
I've been there
to meet payroll? And I'm waiting on the mail to come in for clients to pay their advertising bills to make sure we have enough to meet payroll.
Oh, yeah.
And you talk about some sleepless nights.
Oh, man.
Because if I don't meet payroll, I got to go to the bank and borrow some more money.
Right.
And one of the things I will say, because I've been on both sides of the coin, I worked for a very small corporate company that I absolutely adored their culture for most of my early career. Small corporate media company. Then went to a very large corporate media company. And to be fair to them, radio deregulated, and they had acquired hundreds, if not thousands, of radio stations. They were trying to figure it all out too. And they overpaid for all these radio stations, so expense cuts became the norm. But when you work for a company, it's really easy to be the Monday morning quarterback and go, well, if I ran this place, I would do this. Why aren't we doing this? How come we don't hire these people? There's all of these things. I don't understand why we don't do these things. And then when you become the business owner, the stark reality hits that you have to have the revenue coming in the door.
Money matters, yeah.
Yeah, to be able to do things that you think might help the company. So when you get into the reality of running the business day to day, you're not always thinking about 5 years, 10 years in the future. You're trying to make things work right now.
Right.
And so you get so involved in the day-to-day operations of the business, making sure that you can meet payroll and all of your vendors get paid and all those kind of things, that sometimes you got to force yourself to step back and go, okay, where are we growing or going with this?
Right.
But at least my vision is for the digital limestone. And, you were a big part in helping us decide. We launched our digital division many years ago, and we were known as Tops Digital Solutions. But the name of our magazine, as your viewers can see, is Tops Magazine here. Shameless plug. But a lot of people thought that Tops Digital Solutions had something to do with our website.
Right.
Like we sold banner ads on our website, and they couldn't quite separate the two. Well, seeing what your experience was, because you have a kind of a similar background.
Yep.
We decided to rebrand and launch Limestone as its own independent, unique digital agency, which we officially launched yesterday with your help. So we're excited about the growth of Limestone. We got great feedback from our launch and learn yesterday, as I like to call it.
Oh, that's a great name for it.
Yeah. And so we're excited to see where the digital can grow. I think as we acquire more customers, that we're going to have to bring on some additional staffing
Right.
for Limestone. So it's kind of a chicken and the egg. You get the customers, then maybe you can afford to bring on more staff and grow as we grow.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting exercise to consider, because I've heard that people tend to grossly underestimate what they can accomplish in a decade, but overestimate what they can accomplish in a year. And so meaning, like, if we change our time horizons and we start thinking about things in terms of decades and years and, the real long-term endeavors and initiatives with all of this, that it can be so much more, so much bigger, so much grander than we anticipate. It's like small steps now, that idea of like an overnight success 10 years in the making.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think so many entrepreneurs and business owners get discouraged because they see these people that have made it 15, 20 years and they've got these big successful businesses, but they forget that, that happened one day at a time, one payroll at a time. I was laughing about the payroll thing. I have this, my team even laughs at me because I wear my emotions on my sleeve. As you guys know, you've gotten to know me pretty well now. I'm an open book, but I do the check for checks dance, and so I'll leave the office and I'll be like, I'm going to check for checks, and I'll go down to the mailbox, and if there's no checks, I come back in, I'm like, oh, there's no checks. Or when there are checks, I'm like, there's checks in the mail.
Yeah.
Getting all excited because it's like, thank goodness we can at least, I'm gonna at least make payroll.
Make payroll, yeah.
I'm curious, Joseph, for and it hasn't been too incredibly long yet, but I know that there's been several years now of working on the digital side of it and the digital agency. There's the new brand of Limestone that's very new. But what's been the most challenging part about starting a digital division, a digital agency with Tops? What's been the hardest? Walk me through that reality of starting a new division of a new company, new products, new services. What's that been like? What's been the hardest part about it?
I would say the hardest part is also the best part of it, considering I can't imagine launching an agency not part of a media brand, not having those relationships established, having to talk to businesses that don't know who you are, what you do, or have you don't have really any sort of backing or resources. Was the question the worst part?
Hardest.
Yeah. Okay.
And just what it's been like. I just want some insight into.
Hardest part being, we've got an awesome sales team that has these relationships with businesses. The hardest part is we've got a publication we have to put together every single month. So and it takes a lot of work. I mean, this isn't 50, 60 pages. This is a couple hundred pages.
Right.
So their main focus is print. And there's this FOMO aspect, and it takes up 3 out of 4 weeks out of the month. So they're maybe thinking about digital clients 1 week of the month, maybe, if that. And I think that's hard for everybody involved. There is this opportunity there, but there's the opportunity cost of kind of sacrificing print sales to do magazine sales. So I think that's kind of the hardest part is, we've almost got too much going on at once, and we haven't exactly figured out how to solve that, and we're working with you to help us solve that. But yeah, I would say that is the hardest part.
It's a lot like what Keith was saying about, people sometimes I think misjudge or misunderstand changes in a business that, you have to have the revenue. It's like you got to have the clients to hire the employee. There's these constant chicken and egg dilemmas that happen in entrepreneurship and business ownership. It's like, yeah, I would love to do that. Can we afford it yet? No. And so I've been telling my team forever, it's like, bear with me, because we always have these cycles of expansion and contraction in workloads, for the team. It's like, we've got to absorb it. We've got to rally. We've got to grind down until we get to the point where we can hire more help. And then workloads feel really light because, we've hired, and then they get very, very busy and big. Mm-hmm. And it's very similar, I think, of where in a lot of ways you're starting a new company. You're doing product development. You're doing partnership, research and building relationships and processes and procedures and pricing and, branding and collaterals and sales material. I mean, literally for all intents and purposes, you're starting a new company. And, Keith and I are talking about resources in terms of, money to make changes or whatever. You've got the challenges of time resources, energy resources, and money, resources. So there's some interesting parallels there, because in a lot of ways, I think, starting the digital division is essentially the same thing as starting a new company. There's those same, the same challenges of, obviously if we had a blank check, this whole thing would be so much easier.
Yeah.
I tell my team all the time, if I had a couple $1,000,000, we'd be fine. Like I got big dreams, I got big plans, I got big ideas. Itty little bitty wallet, So
I tell my business manager all the time, if we didn't have to pay all these bills, we would be doing great.
Dang those bills.
Yeah, dang those bills. But you're exactly right. We, Tops has been around for a long time, and we have huge name awareness now in this community. It would be hard to find somebody in our community, especially the business community, that doesn't know what Tops is. We have very high name awareness now. We're at every event. Our magazines are all over the city. So we have great name awareness, which is great. It's one of the things I'm super proud of.
Yeah.
When I'm out in the community and maybe I meet somebody, what do you do? And I say, well, I'm with Tops Magazine. The first thing is, oh, love that magazine. Read it every month, cover to cover. So that's great. So our challenge now is to get Limestone Digital with the same kind of brand awareness.
Right.
So that people, when you say Limestone Digital, they know who we are, what we do, those type things. So yesterday was our big first step in that.
Does it feel entrepreneurial to you? Like what is the, I'm just curious, like what a day, do you feel ownership of it and entrepreneurial, or is it feeling, I'm just kind of curious from like a pressure and life stress environment, if some of that's less because it's part of Tops, or does it feel like an entrepreneurship endeavor for you?
I would say so. I mean, it's not just like a job. I do feel pressure. I mean, I don't want this to fail. I want this to be a success. And I think about all it's like, there's only so many hours in a day. I get to work and there's a huge laundry list of things to do, and they all need to be done right now.
Right.
So then, you got to order and prioritize. You got to email this client back and then send this off and then do this and do that. And, this is going to take 2 days to get back. So I need to do it now so I can get it back. So, it's very interesting to think of, as far as growth goes, how am I going to delegate this going forward? All this stuff could be delegated, but right now it's just me.
Right.
I got to do it. But I'd like to think I take entrepreneurship or I think more of it as my own versus just this is just a job I show up to.
Yeah. Yeah. Where does the motivation come from? Is it internal? Is it, external? Is it like when you're feeling that pressure, is that coming from yourself, or do you feel like you've got to live up to, I don't know, that you don't want to let people down? I'm just kind of curious from the, sitting in the office over where the motivation and the pressure is coming from.
I guess there's a bit of a competitive spirit in me. I do want to be the best. I don't I see what, just reviewing some client campaigns when they come to me saying we're working with this agency, and I see what they have them doing, I'm like, this is insane. Like they're taking you for a ride. I really feel like what we offer is a superior product experience, service than most agencies have in this town, at least, or at least the agencies that some of our businesses that come to us work with currently. I would say the motivation is more competitive really than intrinsic or extrinsic.
That's a fair answer for sure. I think any good entrepreneur is extremely competitive. Like, people have asked me in the past if I'm competitive, and my answer is I'm very non-competitive in day-to-day things. Like, I have a rec league softball team. Could care less if we win or lose. Get me doing a board game, whatever, could care less. But you get me on like life things, and I'm the most competitive person in the whole world. You know what I mean? Like with business or raising my family or, being the best father I can be or whatever it might be. Because I think sometimes it's like a different playing field, like the things that I'm competitive about are so different than the things that a lot of the people my age are competitive with. So I relate to that a ton of like, wanting to be the best. I asked you earlier what the most challenging part of it was. What's the most fulfilling? What are you most proud of when it comes to the digital side of it and, building that division in the company?
I guess client results. It's always nice when something, when you have a print publication or radio or TV, you can see the ads, you can hear them, you can watch them. There is something tangible about it. There's really not anything tangible about the digital space.
Right.
I mean, yeah, you got video, you can see it there, but as far as SEO efforts or Google ads or Facebook ads, like oftentimes your clients don't see that, and they just kind of have to trust it works. And it's cool to see like, hey, we've generated this much revenue based off our efforts.
Yeah.
You didn't necessarily see the ad, or you didn't perform those clicks or see those impressions or whatever, but like it's working, and here's a real tangible impact on your business. Here's revenue. I think that's the most fulfilling.
Yeah. I touched on it earlier. I thought how neat it was, Keith, when you got a little bit choked up and emotional introducing Joseph yesterday at the Launch and Learn, great term for it. And I think a lot of that came from the fact that you've gotten to witness a lot of Joseph's personal growth, and your development and growth as a human being, as a person, as a business operator, as a business owner, all these things. And I got the chance last night to chat with your guys' sales team, and they were alluding a little bit to how much you've evolved and grown in these great ways. I'm just kind of curious, because it's been a few years now, what do you feel like the journey's been like? Walk me through the experience of public speaking yesterday for the first time, because I had, you guys know Robel helped with the branding here, and we've worked together for a while. I had him on the show a while back, and I was expressing to him how insecure I am all the time. And his response to me is that you're insecure because you are never in your comfort zone. You're growing at a pace that's so rapid that you're never doing the thing that you're comfortable doing. Flying to Lexington and speaking for, it's out of my comfort zone. Like all these things. I'm now getting to the point where I'm comfortable being uncomfortable. And, there are, again, parallels with ultra running and business ownership and whatever, but it's happened enough now that it's just business as usual for me to be growing and out of my comfort zone. But I've gotten to witness some of that from you, and I think it's cool. I think it's really fun to see. I mean, even in the year that I've known you, I've seen confidence build up. I've seen expertise grow. I mean, even in the 2 days that we were working here, I saw your public speaking evolve a little while. I want to hear what that's like. I want to hear how does it feel, because so many people have their jobs where, we go in, we pull the lever, we clock in, we clock out, we go home. You are growing rapidly, the business and the person. What is that like?
It's interesting. Because you had, I don't know if you said the quote exactly, but when I when I met my girlfriend, I had a background on my phone, and she always asks me what it was, and I pretend I don't know. But the background on my phone was great things don't come from comfort zones. Because like you said, you're always, I forgot, what was the quote you said? Or what was the phrase? It was something very similar to that. But I mean, the quote's exactly true. I mean, if you stay in your comfort zone, nothing's ever going to change. You know, you kind of have to be exposed to these new experiences and new ideas, and, you know, you kind of got to put yourself out there. And I'm really not used to doing that. I mean, I think the most amount of people I've spoken in front of, you know, outside of church when I was like little was probably this office of like 12 people maybe. So having to speak in front of 40, 50, 60 people was definitely interesting. And, you know, it felt good after. You know, I was able to do something I didn't really think I could do. That was, you know, and it didn't just happen instantly. You know, I had to practice 20, 30, 40 times to get it right. And, you know, it's just your favorite saying, you know, repetition kind of builds reputation. You know, you have to do these things over and over and over and over and over again to get good at them. But no, it was, I guess I kind of have to get used to being out of my comfort zone to grow, really.
Yeah.
If that answers your question.
I want to know where that comes from. Like, do you feel like watching your dad, watching Keith, you know, quit his job, has Keith's journey influenced your ability for personal development and personal growth? Or has that been something that, you know, you've picked up on elsewhere? Or where has sort of this desire, or maybe even willingness is the better word for it, to grow and evolve, where does that come from?
I don't know. That is a good question. It's funny you mentioned watching him. When I was growing up, I was like, I want to be an entrepreneur just like my dad. I want to start my business and do all this stuff. And, you know, and then watching it happen, I'm like, this is awful. I don't want to do this. This is the hardest thing ever.
I can't think of anything worse.
Yeah.
Why would you subject yourself to this?
Yeah. I asked myself that several times
Me
through
too.
the process.
But no, like, and then kind of getting seen behind the scenes, like, okay, like this is very difficult. This is not easy, but like there is some like personal satisfaction of doing it. You know, you're fulfilling yourself versus your boss or
right.
You know, corporate or something like that.
Because you were, I don't know, I'm not going to ask you how old you are, but when you started Tops, you were well into your career. I mean, you had learned a ton about business and all that.
Yeah, I think it was 45 or so.
When you started.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you've had rapid growth? You know, have you had personal development and personal growth through the entrepreneurship journey, or had you learned enough, you know, going into it that this is business as usual?
I was very fortunate. The first company I worked for, Village Companies out of Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and you were talking about mentors. The guy that was the president of the company, he's still my mentor to this day.
How cool.
He's in his 80s. Still, he's got it, man. He's very sharp, still with it. Still asks me how much I've sold, criticize, you know. We still communicate, and it's wonderful because he has a lot of wisdom. So they gave us a lot of training. I was fortunate to get a lot of management training, sales training. Believe it or not, he sent me to Harvard Business School for 2 summers in a row.
Wow.
As part of development training. So I felt like I had a lot of great training. But I'll tell you, nothing prepares you to run your own business.
Nope.
Do you remember Indiana Jones?
Yep.
There's a scene in Indiana Jones where he's on a cliff and they tell him you got to have faith. You got to step out into the void and a step would appear. But you don't see it until you actually make that step.
Right.
And running your own business is kind of like that.
What a great analogy.
You're on the tightrope, way up in the air, and there's no safety net.
Yep.
And somehow you got to make it from point A to point B. So if you ever want to think about how good you are, start your own business. Because it will show you real quickly. It will expose your strengths. It will expose your weaknesses. But one of the things it has done for me is that when I worked in corporate America, large and small, I would call on customers and they would tell me how tough things are and their budgets were tight and they didn't know if they could afford the advertising. And I tried to have a lot of empathy for him. I'm like, well, I know things are tough, da 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 da. Well, when you own your own business and everything you do is spending money out of your own pocket, the one thing that's changed me quite a bit is I now have a lot of empathy for small business owners.
Yeah.
Because they're spending their own money, like we spend our own money out of our pockets. And so when somebody comes on board with us as a client, I take it really personal.
Right.
And if they spend $500 or $5,000 a month with us or whatever it is, I want to make sure that they are getting results and that we're doing everything that we can to help that business.
Yeah.
And it just changes your perspective.
Oh, in such a big way. And for me, it's helped me a ton with my sales because I get it now. Like I understand,
Yeah.
the realities of business ownership. It, just to your point. And there's almost this like, I don't know, there's a different level of understanding and respect when, it's a business owner talking to a business owner. Like we get it. And we get to relate and I understand it more deeply for sure. What's it been like for you to see Joseph's growth and development and evolution the last few years?
It's been a really cool thing. He has definitely come a long way, and it's been fun to watch him grow and learn. I will say that when Joseph came on board with us, with digital agencies, and we have this in our presentation, there's a whole lot of digital agencies that focus on what they call the vanity metrics. Man, you got a ton of impressions, you got a ton of clicks. Well, that's great. But when Joseph came on board, he was like, we got to focus more on the action. Phone calls, appointments, the ROI that the clients are going to get, because
Right.
you shouldn't do digital marketing unless somehow it makes you money.
Right.
And one of our big success stories is we had an online women's fashion boutique actually in Louisville, Kentucky, that spent $10,000, but they got $109,000 in retail sales out of it. So they got a 10-time return on their investment. That makes you feel great.
Right. Yeah.
And those are the kind of success stories we want to replicate with all of our accounts. And Joseph, that's been his mission since day one, is we're going to help our clients make money. And we're going to try to figure out a way to get them a 3-time investment, a 5-time, a 10-time return on their investment. So that's been his mission. He still thinks like that. And as a business owner, you really appreciate, you wish everybody you hired had that internal, let's help our clients make money, because we're a marketing company and that's what we're destined to do.
Right. Do you guys ever disagree? Do you guys agree always on like business decisions or those things like that? What's that like with, because you're, like I mentioned, you're essentially building, a new company from scratch.
Yeah,
and,
what's that like?
Yeah, tell me. And I'll turn off his microphone so I can't respond. But what's it like? Like, are you guys always aligned, or do you sometimes disagree on decisions and directions and stuff?
Sure. I mean, we don't always agree on everything. I think the end, like what we want is the same, but how we get there is a little bit different.
Good answer.
I would love to hire 4 people right now. Do we have enough work for 4 full-time people? No. I think like for instance, we want to hire a full-time videographer or content creator. I don't think we necessarily have the business right at this moment to support that, but could we in 6 months, having that on staff? Maybe. I think there's kind of some leaps of faith maybe we could make. Does that make sense long-term financially? Potentially, but short-term, probably not. But no, I don't think we agree on everything.
Yeah.
Is the answer there.
How do you, when you don't agree, how do you separate, business from family? Like, do you guys, I think if I were in business with my dad, I would have a very difficult time having a professional conversation versus a personal conversation. Like I'd have to learn that of, this is a business one, we structure it this way. This is a personal one, we just do what we've always done. I don't know. I'm just curious, like if you guys, when you're having those more difficult conversations or, the disagreements, and I love your point that you agree on the bigger picture. It's the little stuff that sometimes, which of course, it makes so much sense. But do you guys have to navigate that, or is it just like normal communication styles from the because there's the father-son dynamic and there's the business partner dynamic. Do the communication styles change?
I don't think. I mean, at least I don't think so. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't take any disagreements or anything personally. I mean, ultimately, there's kind of two sides to the relationship, I guess, and I don't take anything home with me. Like, Dad doesn't know what he's talking about.
He's the worst.
No, I don't. I mean,
Never like just not talking now over a business thing.
No, I don't think any of that's going on.
Yeah.
At least I don't think so.
Not that you know of, at least. Yeah,
exactly.
No,
You're not on our private calls.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's been good. We do have a lot of discussions about topics, and Joseph, I don't think that we ever have really like disagreements. I just think Joseph has some ideas that we discuss that maybe are different than what we're doing now.
Sure.
And we just talk them through. And, sometimes he's got a really good idea and we'll implement it. And then sometimes he might have an idea that we just financially can't do at the moment. But I think they're more discussions that we talk through.
Right.
I don't think they're like, well, you suck. No, you suck.
Slamming doors.
Slamming doors.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't do that.
Good. Which means
Not that I know of anyway.
Right, yeah. At least not publicly. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But no, and it's fun because it's obviously working. And that's just why I'm so fascinated with it. I'm so interested with it. I've got these long-term dreams of I'd love to someday work with my sons, and I admire my dad so much from a business perspective and all the things that he's taught me. And so I just really enjoy getting to kind of vicariously see your guys' relationship and the businesses that you're building and things like that. So Keith and Joseph, I want to thank you guys so much for coming on the show. First of all, thank you for giving me some of your time because I know how busy you both are. And so I really appreciate, some dedicated time this morning to get you to pick your brain. But I also just want to thank you guys for doing what you're doing. It's important to remember you guys are making huge impacts in your community. You're impacting small businesses, which are the lifeblood of, our economy and our communities and these things like that. And to get to do it together, I think is a cherry on top and, adds to the fulfillment and the excitement from it. And I just want to share how grateful I am to be a part of it and, to be part of the team and be side by side, but also to be able to be far enough away to watch and witness and see the father-son dynamic and the business dynamic and the print and the digital dynamic and all of that stuff. So I've got gifts for both of you guys.
All right.
These are my famous Inspire by Example shirts,
Nice.
which I was thinking about it last night. These are cool shirts because you can't buy them. They have to be gifted to you. But honestly, it's because you guys inspire me by your example. And I love to see, Keith, for you to be starting the business at 45, 19 years later, still evolving, still changing, still being, open-minded and willing to take chances and take risks, I think is awesome. And for Joseph to be, young and fresh and full of ideas and have the patience to, live in the real world and let them happen as they need to happen. But, build the digital side of it from the ground up is, I think, different, but equally as remarkable. And so anyway, I just want to tell you guys how much I appreciate it. And so thank you for inspiring by example. Thanks for making a good impact on the community and, showing us what a good dynamic can look like in office and out.
Well, Ben, I need to thank you for yesterday. We launched Limestone Digital at a facility yesterday, and we had about 60 people show up, a lot of our most important clients. And you are a keynote speaker, and you absolutely crushed it yesterday. And how I can tell you did a great job was I heard it, but have you ever been in a meeting and all of a sudden 5 or 10 minutes into the meeting, people are looking at their cell phones and, somebody's talking, but people are on their cell phones? Nobody was on their cell phones yesterday. So that tells me that they were really engaged with what you were saying and how you were saying it. And you did a wonderful job. And so at the end of it, we had a Q&A session, and our clients had a lot of questions. And I think that we could have been there for 30 minutes, an hour longer, because they were so engaged, and you did such a great job answering what were some really good questions from our clients. So I want to thank you for making our Launch and Learn yesterday huge success.
Thank you. Yeah, the idea, if we want to go fast, go alone. But if we want to go far, we go together. So thank you guys for going with me and for, being part of that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.